I think the parental obligation should be to help your child become self-sufficient. And just because you cut somebody off from a money standpoint does not mean you don't love them.
Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Cory. Cory, welcome back to the show.
Jake, thank you for having me. How you doing?
Good. I hope Cassie is watching or listening to this episode, Cory, because we are recording this a day early so you can go on what?
Vacation.
No. You're going on a baby moon. You're going on a baby moon. And good for you. You're going to Naples, Florida, sunny Naples, Florida. Where? And what's the plan? You guys just going to do some beach time? What are you doing?
Just some beach time, relax, do some reading. I know that Cassie is doing, believe it or not, there's a mother-to-be massage, Jake. I'm learning about all kinds of stuff. So that is on the docket for her, but it's really just a getaway for us. We're going down there for 4 nights before June.
It is a baby moon if she's getting a mother's-to-be massage.
That's a fair point. I won't argue with you on that.
Now, if you were
Cassie might, but I won't.
If you were going to go to the Super Bowl, I wouldn't call that a baby moon. Or if you were going to go, I guess there's not really any sports playing right now. Maybe a basketball game in Oklahoma City, I wouldn't call that a baby moon. But going to Florida for a mother's massage, tell Cassie it's a baby moon. Embrace it.
Hang on, let me write that down. Let me jot that down. All right, I'll let her know.
Well, good. I'm happy for you guys. You know, I'm giving you a hard time. I'm excited for you.
I know.
And the following week, I'll be headed to sunny Scottsdale on a golf trip. So I'm really excited. That's going to kind of kick off my 2024 campaign of my golf season. I'm going to get to play golf at a few different courses with some good friends of mine. And so I'm really looking forward to getting out some of that desert air and hopefully make some birdies. So we'll see.
Excellent. Keep driving that handicap lower.
That's right. That's right. All right. So with that, Cory, let's
play ball.
All right. Kick us off here.
You want to talk about the Chiefs? Let's talk about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
That's right. So we're recording this obviously after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. It's coming out after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. But Cory, 3 Super Bowls out of 5 years. What a great game. Overtime looked like crap in the first quarter. Although I wasn't really, Rachel was doubting them. She was a little mad at the TV. I wasn't. I didn't think they were necessarily going to win, but I knew there was more in the tank than what they were doing. They weren't losing the game. They were beating themselves. And man, credit to them coming out the second half and really just grinding out a win against a really good 49ers team. Do you have any thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The overtime was a lot of fun. I have read and have seen that there's been some mixed reviews in terms of who understood what rules were involved in overtime in the first place, which is pretty interesting, that the two teams didn't see it the same way. But either way, it is. I feel like with this Super Bowl, especially with Patrick Mahomes winning his 3rd one now, that he's sort of firmly entrenched himself in the conversation of great quarterbacks that have ever played. He's still young and has years ahead of him. And I think that in the current era, he's just ultimately somebody that, you know, people just shouldn't count out anymore. And I think he's proven that time and time again, most recently in the Super Bowl.
Right. And nothing against Brittany Mahomes, but isn't it kind of cool that the tight end has the famous superstar girlfriend? You know, normally it's the quarterback, you know, gets the MVP, gets the girl, wins the game. But, you know, you got to tie it in now with the superstar. So it's a really great time to be a Chiefs fan.
It is.
This I would compare, Cory, you're too young for this, but especially growing up in Texas. When I grew up in Texas, the Dallas Cowboys were America's team. Yep. They were winning championships. Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith. I mean, these guys were all the talk. And it's very cool. And I never rooted for the Cowboys, right? So I was like, whatever. They're good. I don't like it. Fine. But now it's cool to live in the city and cheer for the team that is definitely in that dynasty talk. Now, this is a show about finance, though, Corey. So, what do you think about the $7 million price tag to get 30 seconds of airtime to the commercial? Is it worth it?
In most situations, no would be my answer.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not some marketing genius,
Mhm.
but I think for these big brands, Doritos, State Farm, yeah, Bud Light, what Anheuser-Busch, right? Yeah, sure, it probably makes sense. However, I don't know if, you know, you can expect a ton of action from, I mean, for $7 million, you could pay a lot of Instagram influencers to promote your stuff, a lot of money, right? So,
Good.
or you could run a lot of local ads. I mean, there's a lot you can do with 7 million
Right.
versus just lighting it on fire for 30 seconds. Did you have a favorite commercial?
I liked the State Farm ad with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like a good neighbor. I think it was neighbor is what he was saying. But I liked that one. How about you?
It's fine. I don't think I like the Dunkin' Donuts one. I'm a Matt
Yeah.
Damon, Ben Affleck fan. I feel like Temu kind of stole the show. I mean, because they had like 4 of them. So good for them. I mean, you want to talk about $28 million?
Was that the same commercial 4 times?
I don't think so. I don't know,
Okay.
actually. I don't know. But have you downloaded the app?
No.
Me neither. So
I do remember, though, there was advertising for the same company a year ago.
yeah, I think you're right. So they must be doing something right. They
I
got
guess so.
money.
They did it. They said, let's do it 4 times this year.
So, all right, let's move on to a more relevant topic here, Corey. Here we go. Corey, an early bird's guide to preparing tax returns. What do you got for us?
A few takeaways from this and a few specific bullet points. 1, double check your state deadline for filing your taxes because your state deadline and the IRS can be different. I thought that was good advice. 2, the standard deduction, just to point this out, the standard deduction for last year was $27,700 for a married couple, but that is increased for folks that are over the age of 65. So if you are at or over the age of 65, you want to make sure that's captured appropriately. I thought this was really interesting, Jake. Some states allow you to choose a different approach for your federal return and your state return. And California was the example here that you may take the standard deduction at the federal level, but you may itemize at the state level if that ultimately helps you pay less money in taxes, which I didn't. Yeah. So that was one. And then the last one here was just to point out, we've talked some on the show, Jake, about qualified charitable donations when folks send money from their IRAs to a charity. It's just pointing out that when people are getting their tax forms this year, their 1099s for IRA distributions, just know that that's not going to be broken out separately, and it's something to work with your accountant on.
Right. So yes, if you're gifting from your IRA directly to a charity, you want to make sure that you note that correctly because the institution doesn't know technically what you're doing. So you got to prove it on there. Good. And I want to make another point on that. So this is every year, I feel like, Corey, clients are like, where's my 1099? Where's my 1099? And they want to blame the custodian. And again, it's not necessarily the custodian's fault. I mean, when you're investing in different securities, there's a lot of things that needs to get reported and filed and so forth. And ideally, you don't want to have a corrected one. So I like your topic for early filers, but just don't be in too much of a rush because you want to make sure you've got all of your tax documents done and that you don't have to file an edit, right? Is that what it's called? Or amendment, right?
Amended.
To your return. Yeah. You don't want to have to amend your return. So don't be in a rush. I get it. When you're working and you get a W-2, I think your employer has to get it to you by January 31st or something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work like that for the rest of the investment world. So you've got to be a little patient. It's okay to wait till March or April to file your taxes. And if your accountant is giving you pushback and trying to pressure you to rush, then get a new accountant. They shouldn't be pressuring you to file early. I mean, that's part of their job. They understand. Accountants should know that. They understand that. So good. It's a great topic and very timely.
You got it. All right. Social Security, Medicare trouble ahead. Money pros weigh in.
Yeah, I enjoyed this article, Corey, because it's a common question that you and I get. And I want to hear first, I'll kick it back to you. This is a very common concern. What do I do, Corey, if Social Security runs out of money? What do I do if Medicare runs out of money? What do you tell clients when they bring this topic up to you? Or it's a very valid question. The
first thing I would tell them is we can evaluate a few things in their financial plan, but I suppose it's circumstantial for someone, but for the vast majority of the clients that we work with, Jake, I'm not concerned about there not being Social Security benefits or Medicare for them. There's some proactive steps that we can take to plan to at least help them understand the impact if something were to happen to one of those programs.
So are you saying that your clients don't need Social Security, or are you saying that Social Security can do? What are you really saying there? Because you said our clients don't need to worry about that. Why not?
Because I think most of them are either collecting Social Security benefits or close to it. So those are not the demographic that I would expect to be impacted by a change to the Social Security program.
So you're saying they would be grandfathered in, but I guess my concern is it doesn't matter if you're already receiving it. What if it's out of money? What if there's no money to give you? What if you're 70 years old and you're collecting Social Security and it runs out? Then what? What do you tell people?
It will not run out as long as people in this country work and pay payroll taxes. It could be reduced benefit, but it doesn't go to zero.
Yeah, because and again, this is a little harsh statement, but it's a bit of a Ponzi scheme because like you said here, current workers are paying for current beneficiaries of Social Security. So like you said, as long as people are working and paying into the system, then the money should be there. Okay, good. And I say something very similar. I also talk to the fact that there are some simple tweaks that Washington can do to the eligibility requirements or the taxability of Social Security to really extend, the length of the bucket of money there. So it won't be popular, right? So that's why I think the can kind of just gets pushed, not even kicked down the road. It kind of gets nudged. So there's some simple things that they can do in Washington. Again, it would be extremely politically unpopular for whoever's in charge to let Social Security go to zero. They'd get voted out of office because there's too many baby boomers that do rely on it, that do need Social Security. So again, it is a valid question and is a question that, our team at Falcon Wealth Advisors are well equipped to answer. We can run your plan without Social Security, or we can talk about some of the strategies that they can do. So good. Thought it was a very timely question. Again, it comes up a lot and something people should be aware of, but I don't think people should be freaking out about this. Again, we can run your plan without it, or just know as long as you have people paying into it, there should be some money coming in.
Right. Well, let me pose a question to you, Jake. If I was retired today and I wanted to freak out about Social Security today, what would I do?
Yeah, we could run the plan and take it out of there.
Right. But my point is there's not, in terms of actionable steps for me or for anyone to take. Exactly.
Right. There's nothing. Exactly. So it's like saying, what if the Earth orbits into the sun? Like, you can worry about that, but there's nothing you can really do about it. Same with Social Security. You can vote, right, for someone that's going to keep Social Security going, and we could run your plan without it if you're really that concerned. But again, we typically don't do that, Cory, because again, that's kind of like the sun or the Earth flying into the sun, which it could happen, but we don't think it's going to happen. So,
all right, good.
Let's move on. All right, Cory, America has never had so many 65-year-olds. They're redefining the milestone. So let's talk about turning 65. What do you got for us?
How many people do you think there are turning 65 this year, Jake?
Oh, I read this article, Cory, but I don't remember the number. Isn't it something crazy? Aren't 11,000 people turning 65 every day?
Yes. Yeah. And 4.1 million Americans are expected to hit age 65 this calendar year in 2024.
That's a lot of people on Medicare, Cory.
It is. And that surge, it's expected to continue through 2027.
Right. So tell me, how are they redefining this milestone age?
Yeah. So this was really around what people are doing at age 65, given so many people are reaching the milestone. First and foremost, I wanted to point out nearly 20% of Americans 65 and older were employed in 2023. So I just thought that was an interesting fact. But really the characteristics of this group of people and really what it looks like for people is they're working longer. There's generally speaking more wealth, but there are less pensions and less pension plans that people are receiving. There are more folks that are living single because the divorce rate among people 65 and older is more than tripled, Jake, since 1990, which there's a lot of things that can influence
that. You hate to see that.
Tripling since 1990, much more active. And also, this is a generation, folks reaching this age, that a lot of them really are in tune with the higher purpose in terms of what it is that they're doing with their career.
There's some applause for higher purpose, Cory.
Yes, or in retirement. or in retirement. So the point here is that just it is there was a quote from somebody in this article who was interviewed who said 85 is the new 65, which again, that's maybe a bit of a stretch, but the point here is it looks a lot different for 65-year-olds today than it did 30 years ago.
I agree. Yeah. And again, I read through this article also. I love it. More people are working. They're more active. Hate to see the divorce rate. I think the article mentioned that I guess it's because people are living longer. And so they don't want to spend the next 30 years with someone they hate, which you hate to see it. Again, you hate to see it regardless, but it does happen. And they are redefining some things out there. So that's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing this one. Quick commercial for Upticks, Cory. We, as of the recording of this episode, we're at 999 subscribers on our YouTube channel. I'm sure by the time this gets through compliance and published, we'll be well over 1,000. So again, great round of applause to all of our subscribers, Cory. Again, we are creating, producing, and getting Upticks out into the world because we want to enhance financial literacy. So if you're not already subscribed, we would encourage you to do so. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, please give us a 5-star rating, like, and share our content. All right, Cory, lead us on to the next topic.
These families are shutting down the bank of mom and dad.
Yeah, I think we talked about this on a previous episode where parents are subsidizing their adult children's cash flow more and more and longer and longer. But I finally was refreshed to see this, that parents are starting to wean their children off of this extended allowance time frame. And it was pretty crazy, Cory. Half of parents help their children because they think it's their parental obligation. So my takeaway from this article is let's not confuse love with money, because those are two separate things. And again, very easy for me to say. I don't have any children yet. Hopefully I do one day. I'm just saying that if your kid is 30 years old and you're still paying their car payment or buying their groceries, unless there's something extreme that happened, maybe they got on some hard luck and something bad happened to them. Otherwise, I think the parental obligation should be to help your child become self-sufficient. And just because you cut somebody off from a money standpoint does not mean you don't love them. So let's get rid of that guilt. Let's get rid of that shame and that burden. And let's remember that ultimately, hopefully, you are raising children so they too can be productive members of society and play their part and contribute accordingly. Easy again for me to say, Cory. It'll probably all change once I have kids. I'll probably pay for them till they're 50. but I don't know. Hopefully not. But again, it's easy from my perspective to see it. Do you have any thoughts on this before we move to the next one?
I just wonder what shift has occurred that has resulted in more parents in this situation in the first place, relative to maybe 10 or 20 years ago. And I understand that there's some changes here. And I don't know if it's rising costs. I don't know what it would be, but I'm just curious what that shift looks like. Maybe it's just generational for where, to where parents feel like it is more of an obligation as a parent to provide for their children, their grown adult children financially. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that? I don't know I just don't know.
That's pretty deep, but you're right. I think it is shifting. I think people don't want to go to work. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, I don't know if this hardworking, a lot of people before our generation, Cory, would graduate high school and go to work. And they were getting married younger and having families and buying homes. So they kind of had to work. Then in our generation, I'm counting myself in yours, we're close enough. Most people, not everybody, but a lot of people went to college, student loans, so they had to work and got married a little later, rented a little longer, and then bought a house, and others still kind of do that. I think this new generation, though, is not as incentivized to go to college, not as incentivized to go to work, not because they're lazy. I think it's, like you said, I think it's a generational shift. I think more things are digital. There's more of this gig economy that someone could be a Postmates driver and live at home and make enough money to get by. And that's okay. That didn't even exist. That wasn't even
true.
I mean, there was pizza delivery people, but that was like there wasn't Uber, or there wasn't Instagram to monetize fashion and other things. So like, there's a lot of different ways to make money. And I think that's okay. And I think that's great. But I think that's also causing people to not jump into the workforce as quickly. And also, Cory, quick side note, I think people jump around too much now too. I think You think that gets you ahead, and some people it does. If you can ratchet up your income every time, that's fine. But you're really missing out on culture and compounding and seniority and all those other good things that come with being loyal to your company. So that's my thoughts. I don't know. So we'll see.
Good.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. All right, Cory, does the 4% withdrawal rule for retirees still make sense?
I never really thought this made a lot of sense in the first place, but I do understand the concept of it. So the point from this article, one, is that the sort of creator or the person that came up with the idea of the 4% rule has adjusted that to the 4.7% rule, which I thought was interesting. But the point here from my perspective is that that's a rule of thumb. It's not a financial plan for anyone. And I also think, what if leaving a lot of money in a retiree's portfolio at the end of their life is not the most important thing? What about someone that has to take required minimum distributions where their withdrawal rate may exceed 4 or 4.7%? Those are the things that I think about when I see the 4% or 4.7% rule or whatever it might be, that really just highlights how much it is a rule of thumb and not a financial plan.
Right. Let's define that real quick because you're getting into it a little bit. Let's define it. So again, if you have $1 million, what this, argument suggests is that you would pull $40,000 a year from your account, adjusted for inflation. Then you get Social Security, maybe you get a pension, whatever. And that's what you live off of. And that's very paper napkin financial planning. And I want to make it very clear, Cory, that we at Falcon Wealth Advisors are anti the 4% rule because, like you just mentioned, life is too ambiguous to just do this cookie cutter paper napkin planning. I guess maybe if you're doing it on your own and you want some sort of general rule. But again, I still don't like that even if you're doing this on your own.
Right.
So again, we don't subscribe to this. I think an advisor that subscribes to this is being lazy because, again, there's far too much nuance. Some years, our clients may pull 10% of their account, Cory.
Right.
Some years, it may be 1% of their account. And I guess I'm here to say that can be okay. And this isn't advice, but I don't like this. You're planning a 30-year retirement. You can only pull 4% a year, like you said, and then you're going to leave $10 million to your kids. Why? But anyways, go ahead. Did you have more? I wanted to define that though, because I don't know if anyone knows what.
No, I'm glad you did, and you've touched on most of what I wanted to highlight, but I just couldn't. When I read something like this, it just sparks a lot of other thoughts, like we've kind of kicked around here today, that just point to directly the reason that this should not be the end all be all for anyone in retirement.
Right. That's not. So I love it. It's not a financial plan. It's a general rule.
Exactly.
Very good.
Exactly. All right, Jake. So homeowners are sitting on a ton of equity. How to tap into it wisely?
Right. So we're looking at things, so especially as you get into retirement, your house may be paid off, but you need money for an emergency. You need to do some sort of home renovation. Mm-hmm. And so what this is really speaking to is a home equity line of credit may be an appropriate way to get some cash to do the things that you need to do. Now, I would not recommend you do this to take a vacation or to just live month to month, because the interest rates on these home equity lines of credit are higher, much higher than they were a couple of years ago. So I guess the point of this, Cory, is that when we're looking at a financial plan for a client, we also are taking into consideration their home equity. Mm-hmm. And most people don't want to tap that, but just know that it's there. So if your house is paid for or close to paid for, and it's worth $400,000 or $300,000 or $1 million, you've got real equity there that you could potentially tap into versus, for example, liquidating a bunch of stocks and paying taxes, capital gains, or taking a lot of money from your 401k or your IRA and paying a lot of ordinary income. So I just want people to be aware that, hey, if your house is paid for, house prices are up, you may be able to tap into some of that based on what current situation you're experiencing and what we really need to achieve. But this is not for an undisciplined person, because you're definitely going to want to pay this back because this interest rate is quite a bit higher than it used to be.
Yep, that's good, Jake. I just had literally just yesterday had a conversation with a client who was looking at a pretty meaningful expense that they were questioning whether they should pull the money out of their retirement accounts, or I suggested we evaluate what a home equity line of credit looks like for exactly the reason that you described, because cashing a big chunk of money out of the retirement account Look at that. How about that applause? I'll take it. I'll take
Great
it. You get
minds
me
think
more of that.
alike, Cory. So
But
again,
yes,
that's why you hire us. That's why you hire Falcon Wealth Advisors, because you and I have had literally thousands of meetings over the years, and we've seen stuff like this, and we want to bring up those unique opportunities to get access to capital in a different way.
Yep, exactly.
All right, good. Cory, you got time for one more. Here we go. So, Cory, managing money in old age when it's time to let someone else do it. Ooh, controversial here subject.
Yes, controversial, challenging, relevant for most people, frankly. And I just really wanted to highlight what was talked about here and what could be some of the signs that it may be time for someone to evaluate having someone else take something over. And reduced memory and attention span, Jake, was one of them. One was problems with everyday math, like a tip at a restaurant. And another one I thought was interesting was declining sense of investment risk and or abnormal fear of it. That's something that this study and research has found, is that as people have had, cognitive challenges as they age, that is actually their investments, their investment returns, their investment risk, and their fear of it, et cetera, is very much something that has a tendency to show itself.
Yeah, really good. Now, I want to point out, this is good. I want to talk about this, but I also want to make another point here that, we have seen this actually, Cory, as people get older.
Yep.
They're maybe not as sharp. Maybe they were do-it-yourselfers for 60 years, and now they're in their 80s, and they're like, Jake, I did this on my own. I created, I invested, created this wealth for my family. I'm just not on it every day like I used to be. And there's no shame in that. But it is a difficult conversation to have, because it's almost like giving the keys to your car away, right?
Yep.
And I know that's very difficult for an elderly person to give that sense of freedom and responsibility and purpose away. And I just want people to know that we've had this conversation before and we're familiar with it. And I understand it's not an easy one to do.
Right.
And we will act as guides, right? We're not going to sit here and sit on our high horse, Cory, and say, we know better than you. You need to give us all your money to invest. No, we'll be here a guide, a partner, however you want to look at it, to help you or your parents manage their wealth as they get older. Now, the second part of this, Cory, is that I have clients that want to turn over the investment management as they're approaching retirement, because they've done a really good job of accumulating wealth, but now that dial turns, Cory, and now they need to preserve their wealth and they need to draw an income stream off of it, which is a completely different way to invest when you're just saving and benefiting from compound interest. Because think about it, Cory, you're in your 30s, you don't care if the market goes down, other than for your clients and our jobs, but in your retirement account, you don't care if the market goes down right now. You're just buying cheaper. So it doesn't really matter. However, the day you stop working at Falcon Wealth Advisors and you start realizing that this money needs to last you the next 30 plus years, and you're going to start drawing from it, that's a completely different mindset, a completely different emotional, event to go through. And it pays to have an unemotional fiduciary third party looking at those assets and helping you make those tough investment decisions. So that's the two ways I see this, not just when somebody's in their 70s or 80s, but also in their 50s. You have thoughts on this?
That's really good, because it is a completely different approach. The way that someone has accumulated wealth is probably not going to be the same way that they're going to preserve and generate income from it. So it's, for a lot of people, as they get close to retirement, Jake, you're taking a whole different approach to the investments. And you talked about the benefits of having an advisor as a guide. Just to add on to what you highlighted, I also think that working with an advisor who focuses on retirees and has experience from working with other folks that have gone through the same experiences, there's a lot of value in that for someone who maybe has been managing their investments themselves. That not only just hiring a fiduciary advisor, but one who has experience in working with people making the transition into retirement comfortably.
Right, exactly. So again, really, really good point. Really good topics today, Cory. So thank you for bringing some good. Hey, I think there was one chart, if Luke puts it up here, but there was no.
There was one chart. There was.
Yeah, but you didn't really talk about it much. So good job on that, Cory. Well,
thanks.
We'll look forward to you bringing a chart maybe next week. So
you've got it. And we do have a listener, Jake, out there that's emailed me some content a few times that says, here's a few more charts to drive Jake crazy. I need to start incorporating more of those into our show.
Let's see them. Bring them out. I'd love to see them. So thank you again, Cory. I know we got to wrap up. Please have a safe trip on your baby moon. And I think we're going to record one more episode before my golf trip. so we can talk more about that. Then thank you again, all of you, for tuning in, and we hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.